Hey mama, are you a multi-passionate mom who is juggling all the things, nursing a baby, battling laundry, trying to keep it together and keep a spicy marriage, and feeling like you're feeling all of it? What's up? I'm Ashley Carroll. I'm here to hold your hand through this process because I believe when you're ready to take control of your life, beat the limiting excuses, step into your own power, you can not only survive, but you can thrive. But you're gonna have to show up for yourself. It's time for me to tough love your way through prioritization, taking self-care seriously, getting rid of excuses, reconnecting with your family, kids, and spouse, and quite honestly, learning to love the chaos because the glory is in the journey. It's in the mess. In this podcast, you will find balance for busy mamas, navigating mom guilt, time management strategies, and everything in between with no fluff and lots of fun. Let's go. Hey, what's up, guys? Today I have Jessica Zimmerman on the podcast, and I like Jessica. I am so blown away by I've looked through your Instagram. I've like done all the creeping by this time, and I'm like so blown away and fascinated by your strength and your like positivity because that's not my natural bend. And so I'm like really ready to like dive in, jump in, and like just have you tell us all the things about your story, basically.
Wow, that's so kind. I love it. Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So you have a new book coming out, which is like the extreme vulnerable thing to do, I feel like, because it's not just like a book that you wrote on like some made up story. It's like your actual life story and the journey that you took. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like to raise three kiddos, build a business, have fight for your marriage, fight for your identity, uh, you know, creating courses and also maintain yourself and your positivity?
Well, that is a great question. And I think that the answer to that is in, I mean, we're gonna talk about it, we're gonna break it down, but that is what my book, Sleeping with a Stranger, is really all about.
Mm,
It's about um what you do when the compass is lost. It is
mm,
about my husband, who we have been together since we were 18, married since we were 23. We had our daughter at 31, and then I had twin boys at 33.
mm,
And about 6 weeks after I gave birth to my twin boys, my husband was diagnosed with this illness that no doctor could diagnose. And
mm,
at this point, had a business. It was a little bit more of like a hobby business than a
mm,
capital B business. And my husband had supported us financially up until this point. So for 11 years, he had supported me financially. And I um, had my business, and he was a financial advisor. And I just remember one night, I just remember it so clearly, just being like, "Ah, he's going to lose his job. There's no way that he can keep his job because he's in and out of the hospital. He can't go meet with clients. He can't network like he used to. And it's not going to be anything personal. It's just as a business. And I understood this, that you can't pay somebody if they can't work. If they can't do your job, the business is going to lose money. And I really understood that. And it became really clear to me that it wasn't a matter of if, like it was going to happen.
mm,
And I, right then and there, was almost kind of on a clock of how quickly can you turn this business of yours into kind of a capital B business, that which is crazy to think about. But I was so desperate to not um, work for anyone else.
mm,
When I was 3 years old, I was in a car accident, and with my sister, who was a few years older than me, and she died, and I survived. And I really know to my core that tomorrow isn't promised, and I
mm,
really know how important time is. I mean, I value it more than anything. It motivates me more than anything, and I just didn't want to work for anyone else. And so here I am, just thinking, how can I continue to work for myself? Um, but how can I make this business actually make money?
mm,
And so, and I go into this a little bit in my book, Sleeping with a Stranger, but it really was based off of a place of fear, if I'm being
mm,
completely honest. It was not me being like, I want to be successful at business. And I mean, that was never really a goal. I just wanted to own my own business. I didn't really care what it was. I would have sold knives for a living. I almost did. I just wanted to be in control of my own time and my own schedule. And through that, I basically, anyone who's been in a situation of being a caregiver, of course, at 33 years old and with newborn children, I don't no one thinks that they're going to have to be a caregiver at that point. No
Right.
one thinks they're going to have to buy their 33-year-old husband diapers, at 33
Mm-hmm.
years old. I remember the lowest point was when I was at the grocery store and I had, this colossal box of newborn diapers. And then I had the potty
Next to
training
adult diapers.
toddler next to adult diapers. And I'm like, I was like, my life cannot get any shittier. I don't know if I
Yeah,
can say that on here.
literally. Yeah.
But I just was like, it can't, like, this is my life. And so it came from a place of fear of, I lost my sister.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lose my husband. And if
Mm.
I can just control what I can control, which is my business and how hard I work on my business, then everything will be okay. And I think
Mm.
people deal with being out of control in all different ways. Some people, it's food related. Some people have, there's drugs, there's alcohol, there's over exercising, there's, depression, there's all these things. And for me, it was, I'm going to control my business. I'm going to put all this energy into my business. And I don't know if it was necessarily the healthiest thing, but what it ended up doing was, as I got better at business, and because it was really kind of a life or death situation for me, that's how I
Right.
looked at it.
Yeah.
As I got better at business, I started to feel almost more like myself, if that's possible. It was kind of like, oh wait,
Mm.
this feels comfortable. This feels right. This feels, I don't know. It was like my whole life prior to that, I always felt a little um out of place or out of the box, or like, what am I doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just kind of that thought. And I started to really feel comfortable and confident. And I was starting to become, I think, who I was always meant to be during that time.
Mm.
So yeah,
You,
there's a little bit for you.
yeah, no, you said so many great things. So I want to touch on a few points that you made of your like sense of control. And that was what first came to mind is like when you get this unknown diagnosis, when doctors are like, we don't know, but obviously something's going on if your husband has to wear diapers, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Um, how did you not let the fear of the unknown and like our desire to want that control, because you said you did want to take control of this one aspect, which I felt like was a healthy approach, right? Even if it was you diving into your business. But I feel like for most of us the struggle is we want to like wrap our arms tightly around the whole big picture and control everything to where we are like what paralyzed.
Hmm.
So how did you like navigate through that, and or was that a struggle? I mean, I don't know, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I basically kind of went, one of my ways of protection was to, and by the way, I only know this now, being able to look back at it,
Right.
writing about this. I mean, when I'm in it, and when anyone is in the
Yeah.
thick of their stuff, their I call it the underground work, right? That dark place where things are happening. We're creating roots and we're doing the dirty work that we have to do, and we have to go through this pain in order to kind of break through and get fruit on the other side. And nobody enjoys it, nobody likes it, it's not Instagram worthy, you don't really want to share it with anyone else. But anyone who's going through it, you don't really know what it all means until you've come out the other side and you can kind of look back on it. So
Mm.
I'm only saying this after a lot of therapy and a
Right.
lot of reflection. I know what it was, but I basically self isolated. And for me, by isolating, that was really a form of protection for me, because the fewer people who really knew what was going on, the better, because the
Mm.
fewer answer the questions I had to answer. And you know, I was able to just kind of keep to my own little world, which was my business, which I had a couple people work for me, and
Mm.
then it was my family, so my husband and my three kids. And so if I could just kind of manage that, then I was good. But what that does is that comes at a cost, because
Right.
you start to, or for me, I really started to um, stop talking to my friends. I would stop
Mm-hmm.
returning phone calls and text messages. And it wasn't that they weren't concerned. It wasn't that they, I even had a friend who, after she read Sleeping with a Stranger, um, that's another, that's a whole nother story. But it's really interesting when people who have been in your life your whole life, they read it, and because
Mm-hmm.
there's no way you can ever verbally express everything that's going on to someone. You
Right.
just you just can't. And so for them to really read what was going on, I think it's my closest friends, it was a little bit almost hurtful to read, because it was
Mm.
like, why would you not share some of this with me? And it's like, did you really read the part where it was like, this was just a form of this was the only way I dealt with it, was by isolating,
Mm-hmm.
and I, we've had to kind of have some of those tough conversations and everything, but I isolated, and then I was able to just kind of control, okay, this is my, and you have to understand too, I had a 2-year old
Yeah,
and
that's insane.
twin newborns.
Yeah.
So people ask all the time, was Stella a big help with the boys? I'm like, no,
No, absolutely
no, she,
not.
she had just, I mean, she was still one when they were born, like
Mm-hmm.
no, she was still a baby herself. And then I had Brian's appointments that he had to go to. So it was just, I was just in a place of survival.
Yeah.
You don't think about it. You don't think about, every day I would wake up and I would go, okay, let me go through the motions of everything I have to
Mm-hmm.
do. And instead of really thinking about what was going on, I would work, any kind of free moment I had, I would work. And I just believed that, one day I would get to the top of that mountain and this would all be over.
Yeah.
And I think I had one major breakdown after about 8 months of it, which I write
Oh
about
my
in the
gosh.
book. Um,
For
but
me, it'd be like every other day. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do
well,
not have that capability to.
and I think we're all made so differently, and I think it's not that it wasn't hard. It's not that I didn't cry by myself. It's not that I
Mhm.
didn't, totally isolate. There were things that definitely show. I mean, I was probably drinking a bottle of wine a night, I
Yeah.
mean, just all kinds of things. But I, we all have, God-given strengths. We all
Mhm.
have things that, our strengths and our weaknesses. And I don't know if you've ever taken the Strength Finders test. I'm a big, huge fan of it, but it gives you your top 5 strengths. And and this is something I learned when I was building my business, but what you want to do as a business owner is you want to go, okay, these are my 5 strengths. So I'm going to do things that I can use these things. And
Mm.
then I'm going to hire people that have totally different strengths than me. And the more strengths I can have in my company, the better my company is going to be.
Yeah.
So, but my number one strength, for whatever reason, it's just how I was made, it's how I was created, is positivity. Now, that does not mean that I am, Sally Sunshine all the time. I mean, I have very dark humor. I curse quite a bit, I mean, just all
Yeah.
kinds of things. But I I have a way when it comes to a difficult situation.
Mm.
I just go, okay, this is happening for me, not to me.
Mm.
I'm just programmed that way. And I try to go, okay, we just have to get through today. Like just today. Let's not worry about next month. Like today we're okay.
Mhm.
And that's just how I'm naturally wired, which isn't always a good thing. I actually had a team member of mine the other day. She was struggling with something, and I went, I get it, I get it, but listen, let's just think about the long run. Like right now this is happening, but 6 months from now. And she said, can you just for a second just listen and not go into why this is good, or whatever. And I
Yeah.
went, oh yeah, you're right, but that's just
Mhm.
how I'm wired. And so which I do believe can be annoying, but that's just how I was through this time. I was like, I just have to get through it day by day, and I just was in survival.
Mm. So I have two questions for you. How do you think that you like was there anything other than, your bottle of wine or whatever? Like how did you I mean, I don't even know. I'm trying to think like what would I do if I was in your shoes and I needed to do something to help me myself, like not my kids, not my husband, not me as a wife, not me as a mom, but like me, how would I help myself to survive at the minimalist level throughout a situation like this, like what would that look like? And I totally understand your reasoning for isolation, because it's like you only have so much of you to pour out. So like
Yeah.
literally there was no, I mean, nothing probably left to even like pick up the phone and send a text, because you're, you know, you're changing a diaper, you're chasing a toddler, you're, you know, like you're changing another diaper, you know, who
Yeah,
knows.
totally. All the
um
time. Yeah, and that was it for me. That was for me. That was my self care in a way,
mm,
which is as screwed up as that sounds. I mean, my husband, who has always been so active and helpful,
uh-huh.
was now basically chained to our master bathroom, and so he went, from 185 pounds to 135 pounds
Oh
very
my
quickly.
gosh.
He was unrecognizable to me, and here he was, he couldn't help at all. And so if something happens to me, I've got three babies. So you
mm,
just kind of go into
right.
this maternal instinct of, I just have to keep these three alive. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So
Yeah.
whatever I have to do to keep these three alive, that is going to come before anything else. And so it, just like any mother does, often we put other people's needs before our own. And I just made sure they were fed, they were dressed, they slept, and thankfully they had preschool that they would go to during the day. And then that's when I worked. But then I would pick them back up and I'd do all the dinner and the baths and the getting them to bed. And then after that, I would get in bed and I would work more on my
Mm,
laptop. And so that's how I survived, was just every day state of survival and just keeping out any kind of outside thing, because
mm-hmm.
that was going to be too much.
Yeah. You said something earlier about how you really felt like you were stepping into yourself once you were growing your business and, or, you know, working on it, and you just felt like this comfortable comfortability in this new space. And so this is something that I'm like always asking women and kind of being curious about is, are if that kind of crisis in your situation, it was a crisis that kind of pointed your um priorities, you know, from just being mom and wife to you're forcibly like having to dig into something else that is outside of those two roles. You know what I mean? That you were able to either remember or reignite your individuality or your identity aside from those two roles of woman, or, you know, mother and wife. um and so I think that's a lot of something that a lot of moms struggle with is, you know, like just being forgetting who they were pre-baby, pre-marriage, because, you know, you just get and doused with all the things. And so I'm really curious if maybe it was this, you know, this new venture that, or this new, you know, forced look and diving into your business that helped you to kind of reignite that passion inside of you, or that, you know, finding of your self identity. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that we are all, born with a purpose. I really do. And I don't mean purpose in some like crazy thing that you have to go find. I mean,
Right.
just these gifts that we're
Mm-hmm.
given, and as a mom, it's one of my, I find it to be one of my, biggest responsibilities, is to really watch my kids. They're 5, 5, and 7 now, and what they love doing, what they're naturally good at doing, and to pay attention when they stop doing it. Because what I do know from doing a little bit of research is that, when we are young, we are doing those things that we, whether it's building and playing with blocks. And, my son, he can like make anything out of anything. He makes things that are insane. I'm just like, how did you build that whole building with these magnets? Or how did you,
Mm-hmm.
he's really good, like spatially, like fitting things into things. My
Mm.
daughter loves everything to do with art. She is into drawing and painting and makeup and like anything that has to do with that. And if
Mm-hmm.
one day she comes home from school and she no longer is doing those things, I bet it's going to be because somebody
Mm.
told her that it was lame or stupid or that she wasn't good at it. And that is going to be my job to remind her that no, 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 honey, that forget what that person said. That's their
Right.
own insecurity. This is what you're born to do. Maybe you're not born to draw, or maybe you're not born to do makeup, but you are born to create in some way using your
Mm-hmm.
hands, in
Mm-hmm.
some kind of artistic form. And what happens is we're all born with that, with something. And we are, first of all, I grew up in the South. So I feel like I was kind of born also with this script that was like, here's how you're expected to behave. Here's how
Mm-hmm.
you should act. Here's what's expected of you. Here's what we expect you to say. We expect you to go to college and then get married and then have children and all of
Right.
these things. And so when do you ever have time to really know yourself or grow yourself if these
Right.
things are expected of you? But I think that you know it's our job as mothers to really to focus on our kids' natural strengths, what they naturally love, and to not let them lose that. Mine, I think, got crushed a little bit, after my sister died.
Mm-hmm.
But I always knew I wanted to own my own business and work for myself. And then I did all the things that the script said. I went to college, even though I hated it. I got married young. I had kids. And then I'd done all the things. And then it was like, once I was forced really to kind of take on that leadership role,
Mm-hmm.
um, is when I went, oh, yeah, this actually feels right. Because it didn't feel right,
Yeah.
just having this kind of side business, but not making anything of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know, I just knew it didn't feel right. And all I know is when it feels right, it feels right. And so when my business started doing well and I was able to provide for my whole family and I was able to, not only grow my business, but help other people grow theirs and everything, that's when I really became who I believe I was always meant to be. And I feel most confident today because I do the things that I am naturally good at doing every day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that completely makes sense. And I actually think that that is a really good insight into parenting right now. Like I'm already thinking, what are my kids doing and when have they stopped doing? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, because you're right. Like it happens so early. My daughter's 10 right now, and so we're in that phase of where things, start to become uncool or somebody, like peers' opinions really matter. And
Right.
so I'm just like, I want to avoid
I
that at
know.
all costs.
Me too. Me too. But it goes the same way, I think too for my husband. I mean,
Hmm.
he, like I said, was financial advisor. He provided for us.
Hmm.
And then after he got sick and lost his job, I mean, our roles totally switched.
Yeah.
It was, I was now the sole breadwinner, the sole, income maker.
Right.
And then we had, but he is so much better. He is, and again, men have this script too. You have to get a
Hmm.
job and make money and provide for your family.
Right.
But in all reality, we are so much better at the opposite. He is so much better keeping a house and he's a lot better with like kids activities and those kinds of things
Hmm.
and going to the grocery store. He's way better at like school functions. I hate those things. Like I wear sunglasses hoping no one talks to me,
Right.
and he will talk to every mom that's there, and so he is so much better suited for that, and I am so much better suited um to to work on my business and take care of us financially.
Hmm. That is so
But we
interesting. I
basically
love
had
that.
to have an illness, break us down,
Right.
both of us, to get us to where, to get us to see our purpose again.
Hmm. Yeah. And I wonder how many moms that are listening can totally relate to that right now because I feel like we are stuck in that one story scenario, but yet, like, there are women that are really good at, being those leaders. And we don't, we're like, this is how it goes. And but we don't allow our husbands to step into that role because we feel like it's our duty. But then
Hmm.
because you're forced to, you're able to see the blessing in that, like, hey, it works better if these, two roles are switched. And
Yeah.
I just wonder if how many couples experimented with that would be like better off for that. You know what I mean?
Well, and it takes a lot of conversation. And
Yeah.
honestly, it takes therapy, because I think,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things for my husband is he was like, my parents paid for me to go to school. Like they
Mm,
paid for my college education.
right.
And what a waste of money that is for them if I don't use it. And I
Utilize it.
thought,
Mm-hmm.
but it also, that job, getting an MBA and passing your Series 7, all those things also made you sick.
Mm,
And so do you, I think they'd rather see you alive, than
right.
care at all about you using your degree. And so I think a lot of people probably feel that pressure too, even if their parents didn't support them financially through school. I think they feel just the pressure of, my
Mm-hmm.
parents expect me to do this. And I think there's a lot of men out there who would probably go, oh, I can't let my wife make the money and me stay home. I can't do that. Like, what will people think? And
Mm,
it's like, well, what's the difference?
yeah.
We should be doing what's best for our family
Mm-hmm.
and what's best for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that, I think that you have to honestly be kind of brave to do that. And I think my husband's really brave to have done that, because let me tell you, he's just about the only man at those at those PTA meetings.
That's awesome. And we all know, you guys know who are listening, like some of y'all hate those PTA meetings. So
I'm one of them.
yeah.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, that's
We
so
need all
funny.
kinds of moms, though. We need all the moms.
Exactly. Well, and
We
I've
really
talked,
do.
yes, and I've
Because the other
talked
day I
about
got a,
that.
sorry, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Tell me. Tell me.
I was just going to say, the other day I got a text message from someone, and they said, hey, we're doing a back to school party at the park. I'm bringing, pizza and drinks and all this. And just bring a lawn chair and your kid and a towel or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, I am just not the mom who sets those up and who even thinks about setting those up. But I am so glad there is a mom who does, and that all she needs from me is to come attend. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
and my daughter and her daughter are going to get that same experience there. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I don't feel guilt at all about not being the mom to organize the party.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so grateful that there is a mom who makes time to make that a priority. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I was just going to say the same thing about our gifts that we each have. Like I may not be the mom who can have, curated bookshelves or whatever, but I can be the mom that, does this for my, plans those outings and invites all the friends, or, like
Right.
I think, yeah, that's completely crucial and I think freeing to know that you don't have to have all those gifts. Like
Right.
there's a
Yes.
community for a reason, because they can provide their own gifts to your community, and you all show up for each other in those ways, and you don't have to be all the things for
Right. Well,
yeah.
and when you try to do it all, you're robbing other people
Mm-hmm.
who have those natural gifts of their
Right.
opportunity to serve or to help or to do what we are not meant to do it all. And that's one
Right.
of the other reasons why I love Strength Finders, is I'm just kind of able to go, you know what, that's not my strength. I'm going to let somebody
Mm-hmm.
else do that. Even if no
Mm-hmm.
one's signed up for it yet, that doesn't mean it's my responsibility to sign up for it.
Right.
Like, no, that's not my strength. I'm not doing it. I can help in this way, but not in that way.
Yeah, completely. And to be honest, we suck at some of these gifts that we're trying to step into that aren't really ours to step into. Um, yeah, you'll have to tell me more. Tell me more about the Strength Finders thing, because I'm really interested in that, and I'm really I think that it's I love doing like the Enneagram, or I love doing the what is it, INFJ. I don't even know what personality.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I don't obsess over them. I just like to look at it and just to be like, huh. Like I feel like each one gives me a different perspective into myself, and then I don't rely on it to be like, oh well, that says that I'm irritable in these situations, so I just already plan on being irritable in that situation,
Right.
like,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I love how it gives me insight into just, oh, okay, like either maybe
Yeah, I
something,
don't think
I don't
it's
know.
supposed to put you in a box. I think it's just
Right.
you can use it to your advantage, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. It can become, wonderful tools for that can be really helpful. What I love about Strength Finders, and you can just Google Strength Finders, and I think the test, when I took it, it was like 1999. It might be up now, I'm not sure, but my number one strength was positivity. My number 2 strength was futuristic, which means I always think ahead. Like I'm always 3 to 6 months out. I mean, just yesterday, I was like, we're planning to go to this national park in May. I need to probably book that
Oh
site,
my
or
gosh.
that reservation.
See,
Like
that
that's
is,
just how my
those
brain
are,
works.
that is my goals right there. Like, I always think, I'm like, man, we have been wanting to go to this national park for the past year. Why can't I get myself together to like put it on the calendar ahead of time? Because it'll be like a free weekend and I'll be like, oh, let's go.
And then you
Or
can't get in.
exactly.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, but see, that's great for those things, but you also need someone in your life who is really good at the day to day, kind of the hour by hour.
Mm-hmm.
My kind of right hand person on Team Zimmerman, she is that way, and she will. We'll be talking and we'll have a meeting, and I'll be like, okay, so next month I really want to do this, and then the next month I want to focus on this. She'll be like, that's great, Jessica, but
Let's
today you
focus
have a
today.
podcast interview in 20 minutes. You
That's
know what I
awesome.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it should like have you prepared for that. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I mean, you need both, but you can't be both. And
Yeah.
so
Oh, dang.
but
So if you're listening
my
out
husband,
there, I need somebody to
yeah.
help me.
Yeah. But my husband's number 1 strength is adaptability,
Mm,
which is amazing for what he's doing right now, which I'm not. I'm the first to say it. I like a schedule. I like
mhm.
structure. I love to chill and hang out. But if that's the plan, like if
Right.
it's on the calendar, like today is your Netflix and chill day and you can wear sweats all day, then that's exactly what I'll do. But I but if someone calls me last minute and is like, hey, want to go here? I'm like, no, I don't, because I didn't plan
Not a
for that.
party.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not adaptable. And my husband is like, he can be in a full on project. Like, I don't know, he could be building a tree house and that could be, and he could be halfway through and I could go, hey, could you take the kids to the pool? And he'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Do you know what I would say if the situation were reversed? I'd be like, are you kidding me? I'm halfway done building this treehouse and I'm going to finish. Go jump in the pool yourself. Like,
Right.
I mean, he just so different. And so you've got to have all the strengths. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
Around
funny.
you. You're not going to have them all yourself, but
Hmm. I can
just
totally play out some of these scenarios with my husband and I right now. I'm sure he's laughing. He listens to every episode. And we'll probably have a conversation about who is who after this as well.
uh-huh.
Um, I wanted to ask you a couple last questions before we hop off of just like going through this time. One thing that I feel very like encouraged by or inspired by is your ability to maintain a relationship with your husband throughout this, critical time. And I think I'm just really curious, like how did you navigate through that? How did you go through the lows and the highs, and then like when you guys got to like the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, then how did you like, okay, I mean pivot, or step
Yeah.
into this new reality for you guys?
I mean, that was honestly the lowest part probably of my life, if I'm being
Mm-hmm.
completely honest, was, because after and I don't want to give everything away, but in sleeping with a stranger, I mean, he's obviously still here today, so he
Yeah.
made it. But that was such a journey to figure out what was wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, over a year of being sick physically,
Mm-hmm.
then your mind finally starts to catch up with you. And so then you're like, oh my gosh, I missed the entire first year of my boys' lives.
Ah.
I lost my job. I was fired. What? Oh my gosh, my wife has been having to take care of everything. Like all of that kind of catches up with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then for him, he became depressed, which I'd never seen him depressed. I've never been around, you know, um, that I knew of,
Mm-hmm.
depression. And that was hard for him to battle, for me to battle. But we became, this is also the time when I'm kind of becoming who I'm meant to be, yet he is no one who I don't recognize him at all. Like
Right.
not even a little bit. It was almost like I had mourned him, like there was the death of Brian, but
Mm.
he was still walking around,
Yeah.
So I couldn't fully mourn him.
Yeah.
But his body was there, but he was not. And he was still, it was almost like he was haunting me. And I mean, and I talk about this in Sleeping with a Stranger, but I mean, I thought about getting divorced. And I think,
Mhm.
I think divorce is okay. That has to happen for some people.
Right.
Divorce is the situation for some people, and that's what needs to happen. And um, I looked into it, and for whatever reason, I wasn't at that kind of last point.
Mhm.
Um, and it mainly because of my kids. And I think, but at the same time, then there's that struggle too of, well, is this the example I want to give my kids of what marriage is? Because it
Mm.
isn't, like how long do you stay and you fight? Because I felt
Right.
like I fought for years. And so, uh, but one of the things I learned was that I was kind of carrying all of that. And
Mhm.
I kind of robbed my husband of his own journey by trying to like do everything myself. And so
Mhm.
once I was able to kind of like release that and just focus on me and him just focus on him, we were kind of able to heal ourselves individually and then come
Mhm.
back. But I mean, listen, our marriage is better than it's ever been today. But I mean, I'm telling you, I hated that man for a while. I mean,
Yeah.
and those are strong words, but I did not like him at all. I didn't want to be around him,
Right.
and so yeah, it's quite a story. And I really do believe though, even in the darkest of times of it, I felt like we were given this story
Mm.
to share it. And so, I don't know another man on the planet who would allow his wife to share this story. It's it's very comical and funny, but it's also has, my darkest moments in it, his darkest moments in it.
Right.
Um, but I think, everyone who's read it, I mean, the feedback I've gotten is just really kind. And they just say things like, I never really knew how to express in words how I feel sometimes. But
Mhm.
this makes me, know that I'm not alone, and I feel this way too. And I think that this all happened to us so that we could share about it and it
Mhm.
could become, a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I got like chills when I was listening to you talk, so I'm like blown away right now. I think that so many, and I'm just thinking about all the women who are listening right now, or even, some of, if there's a men listening too, but like, um, just how we get in those spaces of stepping into our own, but then somebody else is struggling, like, our spouse is struggling to step into their own when we're thriving and they're just surviving. Um, and also in lots of our marriages, it becomes, seasons of, who is this person, or, what am I doing? And um, what would you say? I want to, I don't know, end this podcast on a good note of like, what would you say would be the one thing that was a huge contributing factor to your relationship with your husband being able to move forward?
I think
Whether,
when we stopped being codependent,
mm,
um, and really took the time, for me personally, I was like, I don't need him anymore. You know what I mean? I
mm,
can do this on my own. I've proven that. But do I want him? You know what I mean? Like, do
mm-hmm,
I? And I'm like, well, I don't know yet. So let me just not even think about him for a minute. Let me just work on me. Because the
mm,
truth is, um, what really is going on inside of us is what we're attracting.
yeah,
And so, of course, he was the worst human being on the planet to me because I was the worst version of myself at that time. And
mm,
of course, I was the worst version of myself at that time because for 2 years, I had barely slept. I
right,
had taken care of 3 kids. I had, finally found a doctor on the other side of the world that could diagnose my husband. I had built this business. I had turned that. So there were all these things that contributed to my exhaustion and, you know, um, losing all my adrenals. I mean, just everything. And it did not take, a genius to look at me and see that I was not in the best of physical health. And so I just was like, you know what? I feel like right now I'm the worst version of me. And I really want to know what the best version of me is. Like, I want to see her. I want to know who that is. And so I just started focusing on me, and it started slowly. Like, I started just working out a little bit every day. And then 6 months later, I hired a nutritionist because I was like, and it didn't have anything to do with my weight or my size. It was just, I've heard before that, when you eat really well, you feel better. And so let
Right.
me just see what that's about. Because I mean, I was the girl who loved like jalapeno Cheetos, you know what I mean? So it was like, what's a macro? I don't
Right.
even know what that is. So learning these things was really fascinating. And then I started to learn a little bit about meditation. And at first I was like, meditation, okay. But somebody explained it to me as passive prayer.
Mm,
And that made a lot of sense to me because during Brian's illness, all I wanted was someone to just listen. Because
mm,
every now and then, when someone would ask me how he was and I would tell them the truth, I was not greeted with, I'm so sorry you're going through that. I was greeted with, well, have you talked to so and so? Well, my
yep.
uncle had
Yep.
Crohn's disease. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, I don't care. I just want you to hold space for me. Like, don't
Right.
ask me how I'm doing. I didn't ask you for for an answer. You know what I mean? You
Right.
asked me how I'm telling you. And so then just say I'm sorry. Like, that's all. And that's my piece of advice for anyone out there. You don't need to fix it. Like, just listen. Just give
Yeah.
someone a hug and hold space for them. But I don't know. I just I started passive prayer made sense to me because of all that. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, if you're actively praying, you're doing all the talking, and there has to be a point where you're listening. And then there became a point where it became really clear to me that my mind, my body, and my spirit are all connected. And if I neglect one, then I'm not going to have as good of a day. And
Mm,
it was only when I started waking up and first thing I did was, um, take care of those three things: my mind, my body, and my spirit. And for me, that was um, meditation, doing a devotional, and exercising. And that's going to look different for everybody.
mhm,
But I just noticed when I did all three of those things, I felt so much peace throughout the day. I really became the best version of myself.
mhm,
I, um, I don't know, things that I used to worry about, I no longer worried about. And like when I started to become this person, I started to also see all these good qualities in Brian versus
mhm.
only seeing,
All the
what I
bad.
thought I was seeing.
Hmm.
So that would be my piece of advice. Focus on you and to really try to figure out how your mind, body, and spirit are connected.
Mm, yeah, I love that. I've started doing that myself of like, okay, I have to start the day with a full tank of gas, which means I need to do whatever it is for me that will make me feel like my tank is full before I start to use up this gas throughout the day with my kids. Because if I start on E, then it's going to go downhill fast, right? Like it's going to
Right.
be awful. Um, this was so good, Jessica. Okay, so you have your own podcast, and you have Sleeping with a Stranger coming out. Share with everybody before we hop off about those things, where they can find them and find you and connect with you and all those things.
You can buy Sleeping with a Stranger now. You can go to, I mean, it's wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of that. Or you can go to jessicazimmerman.com and you can, find links there. But everything can be found on jessicazimmerman.com. My podcast, my blog, I have daily content that comes out. Um, yeah, podcast, the book, everything.
Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, I think that about covers it when everybody can just go to one place and find all the things. Um,
All the things.
Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing your story. I I truly admire people who do that because it's like leaving breadcrumbs for the rest of us, and I feel like that's a completely necessary in a world where we are constantly encouraged and guilted into sharing just like the sunny side up version of ourselves. And so yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm excited to see everybody else's story and encouragement found through your book. So that's awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun.
Hey guys, if you found this episode helpful or useful in any way, please, please, please share it with a friend. Let them know that this goodness is available to help them navigate through motherhood, through marriage, through life in general, to make them feel good, to thrive instead of just survive. And don't forget that if you're interested in a one-on-one So She Grows mom session with me to help you get out of that stuck place, get out of feeling like you're just stuck behind your limiting beliefs and your excuses and all the things, and that your marriage isn't on to the level that you would like it to be at. I would love to work with you, navigate through these roadblocks and bust through them with you, so that way you can just own it, man, like, and thrive and dominate this life that we only have one chance at. So I hate for you guys to be stuck in it, drowning, feeling like, you're just doing like this is just how it is kind of lifestyle, when there is so much more for you. So if you feel like that's you, shoot me a DM or shoot me an email at theashcarroll@gmail.com. I look forward to hanging out with you guys one-on-one. And as always, I hope you have an awesome week. Tune in to the next episode. It's going to be awesome. Catch you guys next time.